Every company seems to do performance management their own way. In fact, at one stage, there was a trend to do away with performance management altogether. And that hasn't really lasted because there's always going to be a need for people to know how they're doing and for companies to know who's making a contribution and who isn't. So the reason for the temptation to temporarily abandon any performance process was largely because it was a lot of effort for a little reward. It just didn't seem to be doing what it was designed to do. But when you're working with data, one of the most important things you can ask is, what factors have influenced the data that I'm currently working with? And when it comes to performance scores, there are so many skewing factors. So what do performance scores actually tell us? Well, performance scores tell us more about the person assigning the rating than the person receiving it. So even if you don't have a rated performance system and you use descriptions in your performance process, you can usually assign a value to that variable. So the first thing to do is to create a calibration group. These are groups of people who are operating in similar functions and facing similar operating conditions and challenges. This removes the headwind-tailwind factor because everyone in the group should have faced or experienced relatively similar conditions. By looking at the scores that managers have assigned and using a relative benchmark, the calibration group average, against which to evaluate them, you can differentiate your managers into three types. There are harsh managers, where relative to the group they've underrated their team. There are fair managers, where their evaluations are aligned to the calibration group average. And there are lenient managers, where they've assigned significantly higher ratings to their team members. Now, often people will do that because that is just game theory. If I know that there is a certain size of the pie or reward that's going to be assigned, I know that if I bump my scores up, then I get a bigger slice of the pie. If I'm too fair, somebody else might bump their scores up, and that would be to the detriment of my team. So everybody kind of bumps their scores up according to how they think everybody else will score. And that's one of the biggest problems with performance management systems. And that's why we're saying take a look at the manager, the person who's assigned the rating, not the person who the rating has been assigned to right now. So if we take a look at this example and we use we look at the raw score for Brad E. Okay, he would appear to be one of the top performers there. But we can quickly see that his manager, Pierce, has overrated his whole team by about 20%. So relative to everyone else, Brad E's score should probably be closer to 2.4 in this case than a 3. So this is what we call a fairness-adjusted score. Now, if we take a look at Gianna's score here, that would stay at 3 because her manager has got an average that's close to the calibration group, and her manager, Alexander, has also distributed his ratings for his team. So this means you can more accurately assign a performance descriptor to a person, and this becomes an important data point later on when you start looking at talent calibration. So some of the questions you can take a look at or think about here is, how effectively does your performance process actually differentiate performers? Can managers game your performance process by overrating their direct reports to get a better deal for their team? And are managers who provide fair and distributed ratings penalized because of overrating by other managers?